Hello Year 12s and welcome to this video, which is the first of 3 videos on the roles of Victoria Legal Aid and Community Legal Centres. There are 3 things that you need to do as you're watching this video. First, take the very best Cornell notes that you can. Second, use the pause and rewind functions. Use the pause function if you need to stop this video to take notes. Use the rewind function if you need to go back over any information contained in this video. And the third thing you need to do is have your vocabulary sheets open in front of you so that you can write into your vocabulary sheets the definitions of key terms and of any other words the meaning of which you may be unfamiliar with. Well, let's get started then. Here is your learning intention for the 3 videos. Make sure that you write this learning intention in your Cornell notes. After watching and taking notes on the 3 videos, you should be able to explain the roles of Victoria Legal Aid and Victorian Community Legal Centres in assisting an accused and victims of crime. In this video, I will introduce you to what legal aid is and give you some background on Victoria Legal Aid and Community Legal Centres. In the second video, I will explain the roles of Victoria Legal Aid and Victorian Community Legal Centres in assisting an accused. And in the third video, I will explain the roles of Victoria Legal Aid and Victorian Community Legal Centres in assisting victims of crime. You can use the abbreviations VLA for Victoria Legal Aid and CLC for Community Legal Centre in your notes. You can also use these abbreviations in answers that you write on SACs or exams, providing that you define these terms first. So, for example, if you were answering a question and in your answer you wanted to refer to Victoria Legal Aid, where you first refer to Victoria Legal Aid, you would write out the words Victoria Legal Aid, then include in brackets after it VLA. Then in the rest of that answer, where you want to refer to Victoria Legal Aid, you can simply write VLA. Let's start off by looking at what legal aid is. There are 5 different types of legal aid, and we will be looking at each of these types of legal aid in more detail later on. The first type of legal aid is free legal information, such as information that Victoria Legal Aid or a community legal centre provides on its website. The second type of legal aid is free legal advice that Victoria Legal Aid and community legal centres provide to their clients in person, by video conference or over the phone in relation to fairly minor matters. The third type of legal aid is duty lawyer services. A duty lawyer is an in-house lawyer employed by Victoria Legal Aid or a community legal centre who is on duty at the magistrate's court. Duty lawyers provide free legal advice and representation to accused people and victims of crime on the day of their hearing in the magistrate's court. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term duty lawyer and write this definition of that term in your vocabulary sheets. There is not a duty lawyer in every magistrate's court in Victoria, and duty lawyers do not provide services in the higher courts such as the County Court and the Trial Division. The fourth type of legal aid is only provided by Victoria Legal Aid. This is a grant of legal assistance. The most common grant of legal assistance is where Victoria Legal Aid pays a private lawyer to provide free legal advice and representation to an accused or a victim of crime in relation to a court case. However, in some cases, Victoria Legal Aid will provide a grant of legal assistance to an accused or a victim of crime by assigning an in-house lawyer employed by Victoria Legal Aid to provide free legal advice and representation to that accused or victim in relation to their court case. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term grant of legal assistance and write this definition of that term in your vocabulary sheets. The fifth and final type of legal aid is only provided by community legal centres. This is casework and representation services. Casework and representation services is where a community legal centre assigns an in-house lawyer employed by that community legal centre to provide free legal advice and representation to an accused or a victim of crime in relation to a court case or other matter. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term casework and representation services and write this definition of that term in your vocabulary sheets. You will see that the descriptions of the last three types of legal aid that I've given you refer to in-house lawyers and private lawyers. The difference is that in-house lawyers are lawyers who are employees of Victoria Legal Aid or a community legal centre in the sense that they work for Victoria Legal Aid or the community legal centre on a full-time, part-time or casual basis. Indeed, many in-house lawyers employed by community legal centres are volunteers, meaning that they do not get paid for their work. For example, the Monash Law Clinic is a community legal centre operated by Monash University, which is staffed by volunteer lawyers, including Monash University law students. On the other hand, private lawyers are lawyers who are employed as a solicitor by a private law firm or who work as a barrister. The difference between solicitors and barristers is that solicitors provide legal advice to their clients, whereas barristers represent their clients in court. When providing legal aid in the form of a grant of legal assistance, Victoria Legal Aid will often engage a private lawyer to provide legal advice to an accused or victim of crime or to represent an accused or victim of crime in court. These private lawyers are not employees of Victoria Legal Aid, but work for Victoria Legal Aid on a case-by-case basis, as well as doing legal work for a range of other clients. Now, have you picked up a key word that appears in the description of each type of legal aid that I have given you? That word is free. Whenever you are describing any type of legal aid, you must use the word free. This is because the essence of legal aid is that it is provided to accused people and victims of crime who cannot afford to pay for legal help. It is true that depending on their income, some people who receive legal aid might be required to pay some contribution towards that legal aid. However, we will ignore this exception, and I want you to use the word free whenever you are describing any type of legal aid. The final important thing to remember is that legal aid is not just representation in court. As you can see from the descriptions of the 5 types of legal aid that I have given you, legal aid includes providing legal information and providing legal advice, as well as providing representation in court. The rest of this video provides you with some background information on Victoria Legal Aid and community legal centres. Let's start off with Victoria Legal Aid. Victoria Legal Aid is a Victorian government agency established by the Legal Aid Act 1978 of Victoria that provides free, there's that important word again, or low-cost legal advice and legal representation to people who cannot afford a lawyer. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term Victoria Legal Aid and write this definition of that term in your vocabulary sheets. Note that Victoria Legal Aid is a Victorian government agency. That is, it's a government authority, not a privately owned law firm. Also note that, as its name suggests, Victoria Legal Aid only provides legal advice and legal representation to people in Victoria. It doesn't provide legal advice or legal representation to people in other places. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the main objective of Victoria Legal Aid is to provide legal aid, and it's required to do this in the most effective, economic and efficient manner. That objective is set out in Section 4A of the Legal Aid Act. Victoria Legal Aid also has other functions. Victoria Legal Aid advocates, that is argues, for changes to the law that affect the types of clients that Victoria Legal Aid serves. For example, Victoria Legal Aid has made submissions to the Robodebt Royal Commission, which examined the Commonwealth Government's automated social security debt recovery system that significantly adversely affected people on social security benefits. Victoria Legal Aid has also made submissions to the Disability Royal Commission, which examined the treatment of disabled and mentally ill people by government and private institutions. In addition, Victoria Legal Aid has argued strongly for an increase in the age of criminal responsibility, that is, the minimum age at which a child can be prosecuted for a criminal offence, from 10 to 14 years old. These are all issues that are directly relevant to the types of clients that Victoria Legal Aid serves. As you'll see in a moment, Victoria Legal Aid clients include people on social security benefits, people suffering a disability or mental illness, and young people, including children. Finally, Victoria Legal Aid provides legal education programs to the community, for instance by visiting schools to educate students about their legal rights, and it researches legal aid issues. While these are important functions, for our purposes we are focusing on the function of Victoria Legal Aid in providing legal aid. Victoria Legal Aid's clients include the most socially and economically disadvantaged people in Victoria. As you can see from this extract from the Victoria Legal Aid 2022 to 2023 annual report, 85% of Victoria Legal Aid's clients are unemployed or receiving social security benefits. 34% have a physical disability or mental illness. 28% cannot speak or write English because they come from a different culture. 12% are young people, that is under 19 years old. 8% are homeless or at risk of homelessness, and 8% are Indigenous Australians. There is a huge demand for assistance from Victoria Legal Aid, as demonstrated by the fact that it had 86,321 clients in 2022 to 2023. Now, you don't need to remember these statistics, but you do need to know the types of people who are given legal aid by Victoria Legal Aid. Victoria Legal Aid is funded by grants from the Victorian and Commonwealth governments, which means that it is really funded by taxpayers. It uses these funds to cover its expenses, such as the cost of employing in-house lawyers, including duty lawyers, and the grants of legal assistance that it makes, that is, the payments it makes to private lawyers for providing legal advice and legal representation to Victoria Legal Aid's clients. This is a significant issue for Victoria Legal Aid. Because it is dependent on government grants, the grants that are paid to Victoria Legal Aid can change from year to year because governments have competing budgetary priorities. In particular, although legal aid funding is widely recognised as being insufficient to meet the community's needs, it is very difficult for the government to significantly increase legal aid funding. This is because, to significantly increase legal aid funding, governments either have to increase taxes to fund the increase in legal aid funding, or reduce expenditure in other areas, such as education, health, and social security payments, so that they can reallocate that funding to legal aid. Because there is not enough legal aid to meet the community's needs, Victoria Legal Aid has to prioritise the matters that it funds through legal aid, including through the grants of legal assistance that it makes. Around 50% of the amount that Victoria Legal Aid pays through grants of legal assistance is put towards criminal matters, such as defending an accused who has been charged with a summary offence or an indictable offence, or funding an appeal by an accused against their conviction. This is legal aid that is mostly provided to accused people. Around 40% of the amount that Victoria Legal Aid pays through grants of legal assistance is put towards family law matters, including protection order applications such as family violence intervention order applications, and child protection, support and custody applications. This is legal aid that is mostly provided to victims, largely women and children who are the victims of family violence. The remaining 10% of the amount that Victoria Legal Aid pays through grants of legal assistance is put towards other matters, including civil matters such as discrimination and employment disputes. Well, that's Victoria Legal Aid. Let's now look at community legal centres. A community legal centre is an independent organisation, that is, independent of government, that provides free legal services to people who are unable to pay for those services. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term community legal centre and write this definition of that term in your vocabulary sheets. Like Victoria Legal Aid, the primary role of community legal centres is to provide legal aid. This is the function that we will be concentrating on. However, community legal centres also have other functions. Like Victoria Legal Aid, community legal centres advocate, that is argue, for changes to the law that affect the types of clients that they serve. For example, community legal centres have argued strongly for an increase in the age of criminal responsibility, that is, the minimum age at which a child can be prosecuted for a criminal offence, from 10 to 14 years old. They have also advocated for less strict bail laws so that more people are released on bail rather than being held on remand, for changes to the treatment of family violence and sexual offences by the Victorian justice system so as to better address the needs of the victims of these offences, and for laws that better protect the rights of LGBTQIA+ people. In addition, like Victoria Legal Aid, community legal centres provide legal education programs to the community. There are around 47 community legal centres in Victoria, most of which are staffed by volunteers. Broadly speaking, there are two kinds of community legal centres. The first kind is generalist community legal centres, which provide legal services to people in a particular geographical area. For example, we have the Brimbank Melton Community Legal Centre, which provides legal services to people who live in the Brimbank Melton area. The second kind of community legal centres is specialist community legal centres. A specialist community legal centre might provide legal services to a particular group of people. For example, Youth Law provides free legal services to people under 25 years of age, and Women's Legal Service Victoria provides free legal services to women experiencing family violence. Alternatively, a specialist community legal centre might provide legal services in a particular area of law. For example, Refugee Legal provides free legal advice on immigration law, a specific area of law that is relevant to asylum seekers. Like Victoria Legal Aid, the clients of community legal centres include the most socially and economically disadvantaged people in Victoria. As you can see from this extract from the 2022 to 2023 Victorian Federation of Community Legal Centres annual report, around 38% of community legal centre clients are the victims of family violence or at risk of family violence. Around 27% have a physical disability or mental illness. Around 26% are single parents with dependent children, meaning that they are likely to be living on quite a low income. Around 16% cannot speak or write English because they come from a different culture. Around 11% are homeless or at risk of homelessness. Around 10% are young people, that is under 25 years old, and at least 3% are Indigenous Australians. Now, you don't need to remember these statistics, but you do need to know the types of people who are given legal aid by community legal centres. Community legal centres are funded by grants from the Commonwealth Government, the Victorian Government, Victoria Legal Aid, and local governments, as well as by private donations. In addition, community legal centres depend heavily on volunteer staff. The upshot of this is that the funding and resources provided to community legal centres is not very secure, as there is no guarantee that these grants, private donations and volunteers will be available in any year. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Your next task is to watch and take notes on the second video in this series of 3 videos, which is a video that explains the roles of Victoria Legal Aid and Victorian Community Legal Centres in assisting an accused. Thank you for your attention.